Hello everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to use gum paper tape to tape down and stretch your paintings on watercolor paper to a piece of board. So here are the materials that we will need to do this. We will need a Tupperware the size of your painting. This is pretending to be my painting for now because I already finished it and it's flattening. So we need this to be the same or like bigger size of this so that we can dunk it in there. And if your painting is bigger than this size or bigger than any Tupperware that you have, you can definitely feel free to use like a bathtub or a sink because I've used my bathtub for bigger paintings. I have only done this technique while using like a hot press or a cold press watercolor paper with pencil marks. You can do it with no pencil, just like a blank paper if that's how you like to approach your paintings, but this is just the way I've done it. Your board. This board I have gotten from Home Depot and it is a hardboard. It is cheap and it is a 1/2 inch thick. I do not suggest to get anything smaller than 1/2 inch unless you do a layer painting on it of like poly or something that will keep it waterproof. But if you don't, a 1/2 inch thick board will keep from warping so much because I have used a 1/2 inch board with a painting on top of it that I did this whole gum paper tape on, and it ended up stretching and warping and ripping my painting. Yeah. You'll need a sponge this is pretty cheap, and this will be for just dipping in the water and rubbing down your strips of paper to activate them, and your towel so that we can dab off your painting. Let's get into it. So I'm going to measure this out. I like to leave a little bit extra, especially if it's smaller, just to get it taped down extra. And since this is so thick and my border I kind of left small, I'm gonna cut this in half. So I'm pretty picky about having really straight edges, so I'm going to remember which ones are the straight edges versus the cut edge, and I'm gonna lay them flat. I like to have my pieces super organized because I've done this several times, and sometimes I'm in a rush and then I use the wrong piece, and then my painting is sitting here wet, kind of drying, and then I have to go through the whole process again. So it's good to prepare your things before you start. So we have our towel now ready. I'm gonna just dunk this in here. Okay, and it's really good to have your drawing, like the finalized lines, done already and a little bit darker, just because when you dunk it in the water they kind of fade, and sometimes using this sponge it kind of spreads the graphite. So I try not to spread on my painting too much. Very easily, simply just dunking it in. Going for a swim, and I do a couple dunks just so that the water really seeps into the paper. Okay, and now I'm just gonna let it drain, and there's still a lot of water on this paper, so that's when I'm just gonna kind of leave it there. I don't know if you can see the kind of wet and dry spots. It's okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, just not like sopping wet. Here we go. So plan out where you want your painting to be on the board. Now I'm going to take my sponge. So on the gum paper, you'll notice there's a shiny side and there's like a matte side. This is the side with the adhesive. So we're going to dunk this in here and just get this wet. And I start with the long ways because I have no idea. Oh wait, let me make sure. Is this the straight side? Goodness. I just measure up to the line on both ends, touch it in the middle, and then from the middle outwards. And you'll just feel it kind of tack down. And it gets slimy, so it'll stick. And then what I like to do is take my fingernail and just get to the edge so that it really holds it down. If there's any air gaps in there, then there's a bigger chance of it bubbling up, and while you're painting or after everything dries, then it's come up before, like the paper has bubbled up. Okay, so this time I'm gonna remember which side was the straight side. Okay, it's there. I like to just make sure your hands are clean to just make sure all the air bubbles are out. You can do this, but like I said, I don't want the graphite smearing. It's so good at really getting this like a very tight, glued down feeling. And you can feel the jelly, it's kind of funny. Okay, so now last piece is my straight edge. So with a lot of my techniques, I'm like super methodical about everything, so that if I'm gonna be doing this technique or method over and over again, I just want to have one method that works and that I can count on coming back to over and over again. So yes, I get super methodical about every step. It's kind of funny, but it works for me, and it's just something that continues to get refined until I don't have to think about it when I do it, and I can rely on it. And I've messed up countless times with this, so I feel pretty confident now that this will work every time. And if it doesn't, then we'll try again. Okay, just gonna get those edges a little bit more, tap it off just a little bit, and there we go. So now all we have to do is wait for it all to dry, and it dries perfectly flat. Forgot to mention one thing. The reason why I dunk this paper in the water is so that when we are taping it down, what we're doing is that we're stretching it. When it dries, usually it shrinks. This paper, watercolor paper, is kind of like a sponge. It's just super thin, but that's why it warps when it's not taped down on the edges. So when it dries, it should be nice and flat, as it usually is. And what's even more cool is when the painting is done and I take these pieces of tape off and the painting is free from the board, it is really nice and flat. And I don't really have to flatten it, although sometimes if the edges do become a little bit warped from dipping in the water and taking these pieces of tape off, then I'll flatten it if I want it like perfectly flat for a scan. So that's how I do it. And there you have it. It is pretty dry for the most part. If you want to know how to remove this gum paper tape after you are done painting, I have also another video which I'll link in the description, and it'll be at one of these corners. So thanks for stopping by, and let me know how it works out for you and if you have any questions. Thank you.